Welcome back, everybody, to episode 3 of the INHABIT podcast. My name is Sean Pritchard, and I'm your host. Today, we have a very special guest, Jenn Kneeland. She is an expressive arts therapist, licensed mental health counselor, and a trauma-informed yoga teacher. Jenn specializes in somatic and stress reduction healing. Currently, she's working at Home Base, which is a veteran and family care clinic out of Mass General, as their expressive arts therapist and mindful movement instructor. Jenn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. Just amazing to have reconnected with you after all these years. It's for folks listening, Jenn and I met each other when we were studying abroad 10 years ago back in London. And one of the things that drew me to reconnecting with Jenn was all the amazing work that she's doing in the expressive arts therapy world. She has some really cool takes on flow state, bringing in her experience working in the arts. I am super excited to share her story and dig into her knowledge.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited too. It's been really amazing to see the work that you've been doing and how it kind of like intersects with, like, you know, we took different paths but came together doing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many parallels, and I'm stoked to dig into them. What we're going to do, everyone, just as a thing on the INHABIT podcast with every single one of our episodes, is we got to kick things off with some breathing, make sure that we're tapped in and that you're tapped in for a really special show today. So for folks that are driving or running, definitely don't close your eyes for this. But for folks that are able to take a moment and do some breathing with us, even if you're driving with your eyes open, feel free to breathe, but definitely keep those eyes open. Quick disclaimer. So for folks that are able to sit or lie down, I invite you at this time to find a place where you can get comfortable, placing the hands comfortably on the knees, keeping the back and neck relatively straight, and close the eyes. Taking a slow inhale in through the nose and exhaling out through the mouth. Again, deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth. Last one here, an inhale and exhale, and on this out breath, continue breathing out as far as you mindfully can. And for the remainder of this experience, continue breathing slowly both in and out through the nose. Science tells us that nasal breathing increases the oxygen uptake in our blood by up to 20%, helping us to feel more relaxed, centered, less stressed, and grounded. And as we breathe slowly in and out through the nose, letting go of everything that's come before this moment, not at all concerned in the slightest as to what's to come afterwards. Giving yourself complete agency to be present and grounded in the here and now. Placing your left hand on your chest and your right hand on your belly if you can. Breathing slowly in and out through the nose, keeping the left hand on your chest as still as you can, while the right hand rises and falls with each breath. Slow diaphragmatic breathing helps to stimulate the vagus nerve, which is the main component of the parasympathetic nervous system, lowering the heart rate, reducing inflammation, lowering blood pressure, and giving over 30 trillion cells in the body exactly what they need. And we're going to begin by taking 4 seconds on the inhale and exhale, and then moving up to 5. Let's exhale this next breath here. And inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Deeply in. And out. Now we're going up to 5, and inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. And breathe in. And breathe out. Deeply in. And exhale. Last one here, everyone, and inhale. And at the top of that breath, breathe in a little deeper. And exhale. Keep breathing out. For the remainder of this podcast, I invite you, if you can, to breathe slowly in and out through the nose. Taking a moment in this time to check in with yourself and see how you feel. How does the mind feel? Perhaps a bit more peaceful, less chatter. How about the body? Maybe slightly less tension, feeling a deeper sense of relaxation. We take 22,000 breaths every day, but not all breaths are created equal. The way that we breathe impacts our sleep, our anxiety, our stress, our performance in anything and everything that we do, and ultimately the quality of our life. Breathe well. And I invite you at this time to bring your awareness now back to the area where you currently reside, feeling the contact of your body on the surface where you lie or sit, or maybe you're at the gym and you're on the treadmill, feeling that surface. And in your own time, I invite you to slowly, mindfully open the eyes. Hope everybody is feeling relaxed. I certainly feel good right now. How you doing?
Very grounded, yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. So, Jen, where I would love to start is, let's go back in time a bit. I think going back to somebody's childhood and understanding what things that they did, what they were interested in, tells us this really interesting story about the potential of where they may go in their journey. So would you mind sharing with our listeners, what was something that you loved to do as a child?
I feel that I have always been very artistic. I always loved to create and do all of the different types of arts. I was in dance, I was in art classes, music, and so arts and creativity has always been a part of my being. So yeah, as a child, I really delved into all of those realms.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What specifically, was there one that you were drawn to more over others? And then second part to that, was there somebody in your life that guided you towards that, like whether family member or teacher, friend, or was that something you were just innately drawn to?
I think the visual arts was an internal motivator, but the music side of things, my love of music definitely comes from my dad. So yeah, and my parents always commented when I was younger, like they are not artistic at all, and they were very surprised to see how visually creative I am. Yeah.
And with your dad, was there one specific like genre of music that you guys always connected on?
Oh yeah, big fan of the Beatles.
Nice.
Big fan of that genre of music. I remember listening to like Fleetwood Mac a lot. ABBA, you know.
Awesome.
The classics.
yeah, definitely. Any like at-home dance parties, or what was the vibe? Yeah.
Of course. The Everly Brothers were really big in my family. We used to put on the Greatest Hits album and dance around.
Just riff it?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. So with that in mind, like when you think about your journey going from childhood, falling in love with the arts, being able to really express yourself, and as you grew up, how did you make that transition? And we can tie this into the amazing work that you're doing currently, but how do you think that impacted where you ultimately are today?
I feel that so my journey to finding the expressive arts as a therapeutic healing practice, if that's kind of where you want to go with this. I really felt that the path of like trying to go through an education realm, you know, you have to like figure out what you want to do, and I really, in terms of all of the different parts of the educational system, I really enjoyed psychology. From the first time I took like senior high school psychology, I was like, this is probably what I'm going to want to do. But then as I went through my undergrad program, I kind of fell away from the arts until my senior year. And I was like, man, I got to get back into it. I just am losing something that's like really essential to who I am. And then I remember I like looked up, you know, arts and psychology, and the program that I went to ultimately for my master's school came up, and it's one of the number one programs for expressive arts therapy, but also all of the other modalities in specialization of creative arts therapies. So I was like, that's it.
You felt it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a perfect melding of like my educational interests and my personal soul
coming together.
Yeah, coming together and being like, yep, that's probably a career path I could take. Yeah.
And did you have any, like, before you started the program, did you have any hunches around, even from your experience or friends, family, with the arts as a therapy, like how you could use that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've always used it as a therapeutic process, or a healing process, I guess, for myself. Whenever I was going through something emotionally, I would go to creative writing, or, you know, drawing or dancing or music as like a healing form. And so as soon as I realized that it was an actual study and like a career path, I was like, wow, I've just been feeling this my whole life, and other people are feeling this too, and I can actually share it with other people. And the depth to the theories and the knowledge within creative arts healing is just incredible. Yeah.
And okay, so I want to zoom out for a second. Like when you think about where we're at right now, and we've talked in depth about this, looking at some of the statistics coming out of the CDC related to youth mental health, even mental health in adults, and challenges around suicide, anxiety, depression right now that our country and other countries are facing around the world. What do you think is something unique about expressive art therapy that perhaps other modalities, and I know that there's crossover in a lot of the work that you and I do with like holistic health, with things like breathing, grounding, mindfulness, but what do you think's that other dimension that makes expressive arts therapy potentially more powerful in some ways on it, like by itself?
I feel that the creativity part of our, like, the creativity is an essential part of our development as we are kids. That is the basis of all of the creative arts therapies, is that imaginative play and creative play is part of the way that we develop as children. We learn the world through, and we learn each other, we learn relationships, we learn all of that through imaginative play. And as we grow in this world, that gets lost at some point. And that's why I really love, when I was working with kids, using the creative arts for healing, allowing that space to be like a free, open space for them, and letting them know that this is something that they can utilize for their whole lives. And then, you know, working where I am now, it's quite funny when my clients come in, they see all of the art supplies, and they're like, I haven't been creative since I was in kindergarten. I haven't drawn anything, I haven't painted anything since, can't even remember when. And they're like, are you sure this is like a good idea? Like, is this where I'm supposed to be spending my time right now? And then they go through what we offer, and that switch is just so beautiful. And I love being able to share that moment with people of seeing the creativity come back to them and realizing that they've had it all along and they can really use it going forward.
It's so powerful.
Yeah, to grow and heal. Yeah.
So let's tap into what some of those protocols look like. So client shows up, what happens?
So currently at home base, we work with mainly veteran and service members and their families, and we run a 2-week program. So we fly folks in from all over the country, all over the world. They come to stay with us and go through an intensive program for 2 weeks. One of the basis of all of it is a lot of cognitive education, a lot of stress relief education, lots of independent therapy, group therapy. However, our main diagnosis is PTSD and post-traumatic stress disorder, and there's a lot of science that talks about how trauma and stress actually impacts the language center of the brain. So if people have experienced stress or trauma, it's sometimes really difficult to talk about what they've experienced, try to process through it in a talk space, in a vocabulary sense. The creative arts, however, has a way around the language system. We have the ability to use any form of creativity to express ourselves without the need for language, and therefore start to heal those spaces in the language center of the brain that can then be used to go forward into more cognitive-based therapies. So when they first come into our clinic, art therapy is one of the first interventions that we offer specifically to open up a window or a door into the rest of their cognitive talk therapy process. The current main intervention that we use is based on Melissa Walker's work from the National Intrepid Center of Excellence. She works very closely with the DoD, and she has developed her own mask-based work. Mask work in creative arts therapies is used pretty frequently. However, she really honed in on the fact that this type of work can be done specifically for the veteran population and can be very, very impactful. So we adapted what she's been doing to a condensed version because it's such a quick program. You know, we have to really hone in most impact in a short period of time. So folks come in, we provide them a canvas that is a mask, and the questions for inspiration for their creative process is, on the outside, how do you feel what do you feel like you can share about yourself with others, your friends, your family, your community? And then on the inside, portray what you feel like you don't share or what you can't share with your friends, your family, and your community. And that really starts a good conversation around like what they've experienced, how they've what has brought them to our clinic, what goals they have, and just noticing that they have a shared experience as brothers and sisters in service.
And when they come, because I can only imagine coming back from some of these folks experiencing incredibly difficult traumatic experiences in war, and you giving them that space to be able to really tap into some of those feelings that they may have shelved for a very, very long time, and how the arts are able to really, it sounds like, unlock that deeper knowing and being able to begin at least the process of processing. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest piece that I like to, we like to instill in a lot of the other wellness aspects that we offer in the clinic is autonomy. That's another side of trauma. It's like bringing autonomous choice back into the body, back into the mind. So although I offer this intervention, and I hope and I encourage people to be open to that process, I also fully acknowledge that the way that we are providing that experience, or just the creative arts in general, doesn't always do it for folks. So my biggest thing is talking to my clients on the first day of like, thank you for being open to this process. However, if this didn't do it for you, like, go out and seek all of the other parts of the wellness system that could be helpful for you. When we experience stress and trauma, it turns on the survival system, that fight, flight, freeze, and appease system. The sympathetic nervous system just kicks in, and it really disconnects us from our body. It removes us from being able to feel what our body is trying to tell us. So the creative arts, nutrition, exercise, mindful movement, all of those embodied options are ways of creating a safe environment for folks to reconnect to their body in a safe way, and then be able to listen better. When you listen better to what your body is telling you, you're more likely to understand when feelings are happening, how to deal with them in the moment, understanding the coping skills that come with what feelings are coming up for you. And yeah, it's just definitely a journey of trying to figure out which coping skills work for which emotions you're having, but creating that safety in the body is really the first step in knowing what types of experiences you need to utilize to focus on fostering that safety and that autonomy back into the body.
That's amazing. I'm just thinking like having the options of them being able to also explore those different modalities and not just be like, hey, this is it, going through the program, but hey, we're going to give you some tools, but there's also other areas. Go and see, like, try on a few different things. See also like how you're responding. And I think I'd never heard that quite articulated to me, like you're saying, just around that sympathetic nervous system. And what a lot of folks have is, sympathetic overdrive, where the body is in that constant state of just candidly releasing unnecessary adrenaline and cortisol, which impacts every single cell. And that ability, and maybe we can transition this now a little bit, because I'm abnormally obsessed with breath work and breathing. So let's tie this in a little bit to these modalities that you work in. How do you, while you're going through the arts, tie in the breath and mindfulness? Because I feel like there's so many parallels to presence and the meditative state that you experience through the arts. Yeah, any thoughts to share on that?
Absolutely. So a lot of the time I open with a lot of grounding work, which includes breath. So grounding, for folks who are not familiar, is just tiny practices that allow you to feel embodied and bring resiliency back into your presence. Breath is essential to that, and feeling the ground, or just noticing where you are. So we add breath and grounding into a lot of not only my work, but also in the exercise space and the nutrition space and some of our cognitive sessions. It's essential to do them consistently, and breath is like the biggest cornerstone to all of those grounding techniques.
I mean, is there anything more important than breathing? You wouldn't even be able to be watching this or listening to this without it, so don't forget that. Thank you, Jen. I love
Absolutely.
it. I love it. So I want to transition a bit, going from talking about expressive arts therapy and some of the amazing work that you've done in your career, and just let's talk a little bit about flow state. We were having a conversation earlier today, and you were talking to me about this concept of when your skill is meeting your challenge, and I may even be articulating that wrong,
that's exactly it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so
let's talk about that.
Yeah, the flow state is exactly that. It's the definition of when you're able to be doing something, whether it be exercise or anything in the creative arts, dance. There's a lot of different examples. Being a musician, they experience the flow state together, where your challenge level and your skill level meet at a point where you can feel trusting of your body to perform in the area that you're trying to perform in, but it's also challenging enough where it adds that aspect, in my understanding of it, of creativity, of that space where you're trying to think of how to just be meeting, so you're flowing in and out of this space of trusting and learning and trusting and learning. And I feel very passionate about it, just because it is such an embodied state. A lot of folks, when they talk about the flow state, talk about the loss of a sense of time, or a quietening of the mind and feeling grounded. And it's a very healing process, because it adds that embodiment factor. It adds that safety in the body. So you're fostering a lot of healing and meshing and supporting the mind and body becoming one again.
And with the flow state, do you feel like if somebody was to try to tap into that, because I mean there are ways that, I mean, for me, whether extreme sports, so I've been snowboarding for like over 25 years, and when I'm going out and I'm riding and I'm going through the terrain park and I'm doing tricks, grinding rails, spinning, like I'm not thinking at all. Like I'm genuinely just super present and my body is just reacting. Now, and there's no like cerebral intervention, because if there was, I'd fall just immediately, you know, trying these things.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think about, like, when you're approaching to get to that flow state, there also is an aspect of, I wouldn't say it's mastery, but there's a high level that you have to get at with your skill.
Yes.
To where it doesn't have to be so cerebral, and you don't have that lag between, like, it's like I think about when you're learning a new language, like when I was learning Spanish, you know, that ability to, you think of what you want to say and then you have to then translate it into Spanish, opposed to just knowing what you want to say and then you just say it. So
right.
maybe, are there any things you can give the audience of, if they have a craft, whether that's a sport, whether that's the arts, even in, you know, business, the deep writing, like how would you think about developing some of those skills to tap into the flow state on a more consistent basis?
There's several. I'll give just snippets of a few that are basic level. So one is, if you're trying to master our craft, there's a thought of kind of noticing where structure and the creative space can happen. So like you were saying, you're able to perform all these tricks without kind of really thinking about it. But I'm sure at one point you did have to think about
Definitely.
it. You did have to develop the skill.
And lots of falling, just
yeah.
broken limbs, and just knocking myself out. Like,
yeah.
That process was a little painful.
But that's we were talking earlier about like attunement and misattunement. The ability to like move past, like, okay, so I am not able to do this skill right at this very moment, but I have the drive, I have the motivation to really foster that sense of security in my body. So I'm going to make sure to drill the movement, and make sure that it's an automatic movement for me. So it's fostering a lot of safety by doing that structure and flow, where you're saying, okay, well, part of this skill includes XYZ technique. And so for, you know, like habit forming is another part of this, which is a whole nother podcast. But you know, try one technique for a while, and if you get frustrated, come out of it and go back into it and kind of feel that push and pull until you feel that you're secure in that technique, and then you can use it and like kind of play around with it. Like once you feel like it's embodied, you can be like, okay, well, what if I do this with it? Or what if I transition from one thing to another?
Yeah. And kind of make it personal.
Yeah, personalize it.
Yeah, totally.
Find the creativity in the technique. Other things that kind of help, just really briefly, music that doesn't have any particular like strong meaning, sometimes like less lyrics, or something that you know really well enough to just kind of like use the musicality and let it flow. That can be really helpful to get into the flow state. And also the grounding work that I was talking about earlier. So if I'm going to go out and try to personally set myself into a flow state, like intentionally, I will do some grounding. I'll put on some music that I feel like is really helpful. I'll drill a few techniques that I feel like are some of the ones that I want to play around with, and then I'll just let it flow. Like just like try to really get into it and like be creative and just go for it.
And it's fun, right?
Yeah, it's fun. It's great.
It's an aspect of play too, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of, it's like finding that playfulness within yourself. Yeah.
I love that. It's super powerful.
Yeah.
I want I want to transition this and talk about the education system, because I've been doing a lot more working with kids and teachers, and very passionate about just thinking about, you know, these next generation of leaders that are coming up, and the environment that they are growing up in right now. You know, COVID for many kids and teachers, an incredibly difficult time. You sprinkle in technology, social media, how these dopamine systems are designed, and kids are just having a really, really hard time. Yeah. And teachers coming into that environment are also having a difficult time. And so sometimes I will take space to just think about, like, okay, what are some ideas around the education system, maybe different programs or approaches that could be powerful? I would love to hear, with your background and some of the things we've discussed so far, do you have any thoughts or ideas or different approaches that you think could be cool to integrate as we think about the next, like, 20 or 30,000 years?
Oh man, I'd like to overhaul the entire education system. I want to get on a soapbox right now, but I'll power it down.
Okay.
A few of my biggest thoughts is we are not putting enough time, money, or intention into the arts.
Definitely.
Anytime budget cuts happen at any school, the arts are the first thing to go.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, that's so classic.
And it's the way that we get out of the box. It's the way that people find like constructive thinking instead of just like thinking the same thing, you know, like just being taught and regurgitating education back out. Our minds will form, you know, more creative and innovative ideas when we are invested in the arts. Other things that I feel like, you know, just for what I have experienced with working with children, is there's so much stimuli in the world now that intentional release from sensory input could be really useful for kids. You introduced me as a somatic specialist. Part of my work with my clients is thinking about the senses and how our sensory system impacts the way we live. Sometimes folks have different experiences of how something sounds, how something feels, looks, tastes, and we might not really think about that all that much. When we go through the day, there's all these lights and sounds, and we're on computers that are blue screened, and it's, you know, popping off all those chemicals in our brain, you know? So intentional understanding of how sensory we, like, how our senses are impacted by the environment that we're living in, and then trying to figure out how to balance that out could be really, really helpful.
Yeah, that's definitely something worth exploring more. And I think that concept, we were talking about this earlier, just around stillness.
Yes.
Prioritizing stillness and giving kids the tools and also agency to go and be in stillness and have it be a part of the day. There's been some really interesting work that's done as a way to substitute, for example, disciplinary types of actions. Like, so for example, there was a school in Baltimore, I believe it was Baltimore, that had one of the highest suspension ratings in the country, and they replaced their suspension detention model with a mindfulness and breathing room, and it literally went, I'm pretty sure it was 1 year without a single suspension after that, because opposed to the kids being basically reprimanded, and which perpetuates the process of it, they are given space to be able to sit in stillness, understand, like, how do I feel right now? Like, where is this anger potentially coming from? Having the teacher be able to talk with in that safe space, opposed to immediately going to, reprimanding them and changing that model. I think that alone is is huge. And I think there's even, you know, transitioning over into the prison system and how this is being used. But yeah, that concept of stillness just throughout the day in a world that is just seemingly chaotic is so important, because the classic thing of, you know, Socrates, like, know thyself, and especially in moments when those emotions rise, you know, you feel, which are totally natural and human, to feel feelings of anger, feelings of resentment or pain, and being able to sit with them and understand them and know who you are and get that self-awareness at that age is so key. Because what we know about things like, you know, the body keeps the score, and how emotional that trauma, if without process, can really carry on throughout our life and show up in a lot of other ways. So that time period of teaching kids that, I think, is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like what I see in a lot of my clients, not only in the military population that I work with, but also in a lot of my other adult clients, is that, you know, they've spent years and years and years not being comfortable in stillness. So then it's really difficult to get back to that space. And again, my work is a lot of like, okay, so where is your sensory input happening for you right now? What is the energy like in your body? So how can we gradually train yourself to feel comfortable in stillness? And what you were just saying around, you know, when the emotions and the feelings come up, it then we get comfortable in that stillness, and then we're able to, instead of react, we sit and we respond. Which is a lot of our cognitive work, like DBT and things like that, talks a lot about that concept of being able to respond instead of react.
Yes, and that space between stimulus and response, and that's where the mindfulness and breathing, grounding is so key, because you have that slight bit of separation between something takes place and you can just observe and be like, even if it's outside of you, like somebody says something to you, Joe Schmo cuts you off in his car, whatever, and it's just really interesting that, like, having that little bit of space to take a breath, like how easy it is to then make that next decision. And you're much more centered, opposed to coming from a space of, I am just reacting right now, and I am not in control of that. That is just, I'm just being, reactionary. Jenn, thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us so far. I've learned a ton in this conversation. I hope you all at home and on the road have too. I want to close here with one question. If you had one message that you wanted to get out to the world, all 8 billion people. I know this is probably a lot. This is a big one. So dig deep, or just explore here. No pressure. But what would you want to say to people?
Be as kind to yourself as you can, and do what you can to find what heals you the most. I feel like that statement comes from just seeing a lot of folks get to a point in time where they're, you know, at the clinic or in front of me in a one-on-one session, and they are like so surprised at how far they've gotten in life without the skills that we offer. And it's mind-blowing to me as well, where I feel very privileged to have gone into a career path that I'm also able to kind of use all of this information to do my own healing process.
Yeah. A little self-serving.
Yeah. It's an inside joke in the therapy community that we're all here for that reason.
Yeah. Didn't want to pay for it, so I decided to do it myself.
Just go to school for forever. But yeah, I just feel that, you know, if everybody in the world could do what they can to help themselves and help others, and know that we're all in this world to heal and grow and learn from each other, it could be a really beautiful place.
It could.
Not that it's not already a very beautiful place.
It is, but it could be a little bit more beautiful. Just a little bit. That kindness piece is so big, and I think having it really start with, I think yourself and being kind to yourself, and that self-love is so important, because the way that radiates out to others in your interactions, your business relationships, everything that you do, is so key. And I think when you are there for yourself, you can really be there for other people.
Absolutely. And it ties back into the concept of mindfulness, where they say, non-judgmental awareness of how you're feeling and what you're thinking. And there's a kindness aspect there. You have to meet yourself with kindness to be able to be in a space of non-judgmental awareness. Incredible.
Jenn, is there anything you'd want to share in terms of where people can find you, potentially work with you for clients that may be interested? Anything you want to share with folks?
Yeah, I mean, thanks to you, I'm interested in doing a little bit of entrepreneurial stuff. So there might be a class coming out soon. If you're intrigued in any of the things that we've been talking about, feel free to email me. I'm open. I'm still very busy with all of my current clients, but I love connecting with people. So I'm sure you can link my email in the description of this video. But yeah, reach out. I'm down to chat with people. I wanna help as many people as I can.
Yes, folks, reach out to her. Jenn is amazing, super knowledgeable, and a kind soul. Thank you all, everybody at home that's been listening. This has been a super special conversation. Covered a lot of ground. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others, and live your best life. Oh yeah, and breathe well. See you next time.
Do some art.
Yeah, and art. Do art.